much of the day. Across Northern Ireland, elsewhere across England and Wales, a dry and bright start to Saturday. As I say there could be some mist and fog during the morning, quite a chilly start to Saturday too, but any low cloud will lift and break nicely through the course of the day, and by the afternoon we should see some sunny spells, feeling warm in that sunshine too. Though across northern and western Scotland, much cloudier picture here, some quite persistent spells of rain eventually pushing their way northward, so not feeling quite as warm here, but wherever we do see the sunshine, plenty of autumnal warmth, highs still reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. For Sunday, once again, some fog during the first part of the morning, perhaps more fog if you compare it to mornings this week. Once again, lifting and breaking through the course of the morning, allowing that sunshine to redevelop by the afternoon. There's still a fair amount of cloud across the Northern Isles, for example, which could produce some drizzle. Otherwise, for the rest of the week, remaining dry, settled, mix of cloud and some sunshine, and temperatures around about average for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
How does she say it? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin, where I speak up for the forgotten majority, coming up on tonight's show. After the hideous terror attack on a synagogue in Manchester last week, it's more apparent than ever that Britain does not have a serious strategy to tackle radical Islamism. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by a top expert to discuss how we can shut this threat down completely. And a picturesque Kent market town has become the battleground for Raise the Colours protesters and those who oppose them. We are going to be debating tonight if putting up flags is unity through patriotism, or as the Prime Minister Keir Starmer put it, a cover for violence to instill fear. And Labour Minister Yvette Cooper has today refused to rule out children as young as 13 being forced to have a digital ID card under government plans to expand the state. Reports suggest the ID could be needed for booking childcare, claiming benefits, and even accessing your money. Not exactly what they said it was about to begin with. Whatever next. And tonight, top pollster Martin Baxter joins me in the studio for a TV exclusive. Shock new polling shows us, for the first time, what the British establishment really thinks when it comes to polling, society, and much more besides. That is Friday Night with Matt Goodwin. Starts right now. Now, tonight, I'll also be joined by my panel, acting deputy comment editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn, and political commentator Kai Wilshaw. But as ever, I want to know your views at gbnews.com/your say. Of course, you can reach us on X at GBNews. And now it is time for the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Matt. Good evening to you. Just after 8 o'clock, let's get you up to date with our top stories. An Afghan migrant's been found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage in a TikTok post last year. Fayaz Khan said he was coming to England to pop Mr Farage after the Reform leader posted a video of the 26-year-old arriving on a small boat. Jurors were told Khan, seen here with a tattoo of an AK-47 on his face, was a dangerous man with an interest in firearms. Mr Farage says he hopes Khan will be deported back to Sweden. A man who burnt the Quran outside the Turkish consulate in London has won an appeal against his conviction. Hamit Koskun was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence after making a political statement against the Turkish government. His appeal was attended by Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, who told GB News it's potentially a landmark case.
It's a victory for freedom of speech that Hamit Koskun has been cleared today. Look, you might find it unpleasant, you might even find it downright nasty to burn a religious text in a public place, and it's not something that I would condone. But in most instances, it is not a criminal offence.
The Israeli military has confirmed that its troops have now withdrawn to the agreed deployment line as part of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. Thousands of Palestinians have started to return north, back home, after a pause in fighting came into effect earlier. Although the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israeli forces will remain in Gaza until a number of conditions are met, including Hamas disarmament. Hamas now has until 10 a.m. on Monday to release all living hostages, 20 of them, after which Israel will free hundreds of Palestinian detainees. Well, multiple people have been killed, with others still missing after a blast at a military explosive facility in the US state of Tennessee. The explosion occurred at the Accurate Energetic Systems plant. It's an hour south of Nashville. The explosion heard miles away in neighbouring counties. Officials there say at least 19 people remain unaccounted for. Melania Trump has negotiated the release of children abducted from Ukraine. America's First Lady says she's been working directly with President Putin's team to bring home more children that were brought to Russia. Back-channel talks with the Kremlin began after a summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin in Alaska in August. The Plaid Cymru leader says his party is ready to replace Labour in Wales. Rian ap Iorwerth has told his party's conference in Swansea there will be two competing offers at the elections in May, but only one credible government, and that Labour's time is up.
Everyone can see that Labour's time has passed. More and more Labour voters are turning to Plaid Cymru every single day. And then the spectre of reform looms large. They're the Tories now, the ultra-conservatives. And remember what the Conservatives did to Wales.
And the Prince of Wales has been moved to tears in a new short film highlighting the devastating impact of suicide. Prince William spoke with Rhian Mannings, who lost her baby son and husband within days of each other. In an emotional conversation, the Prince is seen wiping tears away from his eyes. The film marks World Mental Health Day and launches the Royal Foundation National Suicide Prevention Network, a UK-wide initiative backed by more than £1 million worth of funding. Those are your headlines. More coming up for you at 9 o'clock.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, here is something that you might have missed this week, something very important. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has promised to clamp down on radical Islamism. Her party, Brothers of Italy, currently in government, has put forward a bill to tackle what they're calling Islamic separatism across the country. And this is aimed at combating religious radicalisation and religiously motivated hatred. Now, because they're in government, this is expected to pass, and if it does, the following policies will be implemented in Italy. A ban on the burqa and niqab in public places and fines of between £260 and £2,000 if they're worn in shops, offices, schools and universities. Tighter scrutiny of mosque funding and the funding of other Islamic organisations. Criminal penalties for cultural crimes, including virginity testing. Increased punishment for forced marriages, which could lead up to 10 years in prison, adding religious coercion as grounds for prosecution. Well, I don't know about you, but I think this is exactly the kind of thing that we should be doing here in Britain. This is more essential than ever, of course, in the wake of the hideous Islamist terror attack on a synagogue in Manchester last week, which left 2 innocent people dead and 3 others injured. After driving into worshippers at the gates of the building and launching his stabbing spree, Jihad al-Shami stopped to call 999, reportedly telling the handler, "I have killed 2 Jews in the name of the Islamic State." And we have now learned today, according to the Telegraph, that al-Shami attended a mosque associated with a fundamentalist branch of Islam which inspired ISIS and in which the imam described Jews as, and I quote, treacherous. It is more apparent than ever here in the UK, I think, that we currently have no serious strategy to tackle Islamism at all. Make no mistake, radical violent Islamism presents the greatest single threat. It is responsible for the vast majority of terror deaths and roughly 75% of MI5's current caseload. Islamists are infiltrating and influencing Western institutions, societies and cultures, even long before anybody has launched a terrorist attack. Now, I've written about this in recent days, and I've shared some of my own thoughts as to how we might add to this fight back against radical, violent Islamism. I think we need to get a grip on order and control in our prisons, where Islamist extremists are running riot, turning them into recruitment hubs. Officers don't have the backing to confront self-styled emirs, unsupervised worship, and extremist literature. I think we need a new control centre outside the main estate for those ideologically inspired prisoners. I think we also need to give Ofsted proactive powers to investigate extremism, to restore confidence that schools cannot be quietly radicalised under the radar. And we should be monitoring madrasas, tuition centres and weekend schools much more closely than we are currently doing. As the Batley Grammar School case has shown, a teacher still in hiding, by the way, in this country after they happened to offend local Muslims. We need to draw a clear line. There can be no blasphemy codes in state education. There can be no blasphemy laws in this country. Our children must rediscover national pride and learn to challenge malign, ideological and supremacist influences. And I think we need to ensure that mosques cannot operate as unregulated spaces where extremist ideas are normalised. They should be registered and subject to inspection powers similar to schools, required to submit to governance and curriculum oversight. Where repeated extremist rhetoric or incitement is found, regulators must be able to suspend or close them down. And we must stop Islamists from abusing their charitable status as a reputational shield and a funding pipeline by regulating charities to cut off extremist finance and support. And I don't know about you, but Sharia councils should be abolished in this country. We should not have parallel legal systems in this country. As always, though, I want to know what you think about this issue. There are lots of people in Westminster who will not talk about this issue. They want to throw it under the carpet. But as you know, I will always talk about the tough stuff. So reach us at gbnews.com/yoursay or on X @GBNews. But joining me now to discuss this in the studio is Head of Public Policy, a Christian Concern and Islamic Affairs expert, Tim Dieppe. And Tim, I should say at the outset, has written this great book called The Challenge of Islam, Understanding and Responding to Islam's Increasing Influence in the UK. Tim,
thank you.
Giorgia Meloni has really launched quite an ambitious response to Islamism. We should say at the outset, it's important to say, the majority of Muslims firmly disassociate themselves from radical, violent interpretations of Islamism.
Yeah.
But Giorgia Meloni, she's right. Is she to get her arms around this to really push the debate in Europe forward?
Absolutely. I've been arguing for like 9 years plus that we should ban face coverings in public, and it has been done in 20 other countries, including France, Switzerland, Netherlands, Tunisia and various other countries as well. It can be done, it should be done. I nearly gave up on it in the pandemic where we all had to wear face coverings, but we've come back from that, and they're absolutely right to do it. It's a health risk, it's a security risk, it's a safety risk, it's a barrier to communication, it dehumanises women, and it creates statuses women as kind of sexual objects that men can't possibly resist, and that kind of thing. So yes, we should ban face coverings in public places completely. I agree with that.
What about, let me just say, there are people out there who would say, actually, the sign of a liberal society is allowing people to do whatever they want, to wear whatever they want, and to affiliate with whatever religious doctrine they want to affiliate with.
There are limits to that. Polygamy is another limit, for example. We shouldn't be allowing polygamous marriages, and there are lots of, probably tens of thousands of polygamous marriages under the radar in this country. We found that Jihad al-Shami has got 3 wives, for example. We shouldn't be allowing this. One way to stop this would be to say all religious marriages should be registered. If you force religious marriages to be registered, you put a stop to polygamy, step one, that's one big win. And another thing you do is all these women, there are thousands and thousands of them who've got unregistered marriages, they'd have no legal rights if their husband divorces them or leaves them or dies. And Islamic divorce is just, I divorce you 3 times. So we need to give these women legal protection by saying these marriages should be registered in law, and then they have protection. Furthermore, 95% of Sharia council business is dealing with divorces, Islamic divorces, because they don't have their rights because it's an unregistered marriage. You would cut down, smash their business completely if you registered all these religious marriages and said it's got to be registered in law.
What about this argument, as we've seen in the papers today, the evidence that the Manchester terrorist had fallen under the influence of preachers in local mosques who had been saying some pretty unsavoury stuff about Jews not in Israel and elsewhere? What can practically be done in that sphere of mosque scrutiny, of finding out what's going on, of coming down on people who are preaching or essentially are inciting violence and terrorism in our country?
Well, incitement to violence is already a crime, isn't it? So we just need to apply the laws that we have today and tell people this is not acceptable, and arrest people if necessary and prosecute them if necessary if they're inciting violence.
So, for example, one thing I think we could be doing is really reshaping the Charity Commission and having much greater oversight of charitable foundations, charitable organisations, using that as one way to try and clamp down on extremist financing and support.
Where there's extremism in the sense of anything to do with inciting violence or anti-Semitism, of that kind of thing and so on, it absolutely should be clamped down. It absolutely should lose their charitable status for anything like that. I agree.
Let me just push you a little bit further, because there's one thing Giorgia Meloni hasn't mentioned, but President Trump has, which is banning future migration from predominantly Islamic nations. Where are you on that?
We need to absolutely clamp down on immigration. And there is a difference here between Islamic immigration and other immigration. We've had no problems with Ukrainian, Hong Kong, South Korean, Nigerian, no problems integrating all those people. They become great citizens. The problem we have is Islam, where it comes and it wants to create Sharia councils, a parallel legal system. It wants to have Sharia finance in our systems. We want to have Islamophobia law, Islamophobia code to prohibit free speech in relation to its own religion and this kind of thing. We don't get this with other areas. Don't get this with other communities and other groups. We get it with Islam. Trevor Phillips, the former head of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, said in 2016 in an article in the Sunday Times, we've integrated all these people, but the challenge of integrating Muslims will be the greatest challenge this country has ever faced. He said that in 2016. Right, 9 years ago. It's not got any easier since then. It's only got harder. He's just what's happened in the country has only proven that he was right to say that.
Well, Tim, stay with us. I'm just going to bring in our panel, acting deputy comment editor of the Telegraph, Poppy Coburn, and political commentator Kai Wilshaw. Kai, lots of people on the right of Europe at the moment. I was in Paris and Strasbourg this week talking with lots of politicians, speaking in the European Parliament. They're all now saying this is really the big challenge that is facing Europe, that unless they get their arms around this issue of Islamism, or the Islamification, as they see it, of Western nations, we may not actually have nations as we currently recognise them in the decades to come.
Yeah, and let's be clear, that's fear-mongering. Yes, in the extreme example, and there are many extreme examples being targeted correctly by Giorgia Meloni, and perhaps we should be looking at that in the UK. But apart from those extreme examples, as you yourself said in one of your opening questions, there are vast swathes of Muslims in this country who abide by British laws and actually go about their days completely compatibly with British culture. Now, conflating Muslim culture and the culture of those who come here from Muslim countries with some of those dangerous practices that you outlined is a classic way of trying to demonise so many Muslims across this country as being extreme, as being violent, and using this terrorist attack as a pretext to introduce all these laws is ridiculous,
But
frankly.
you do recognise there is a problem with Islamism, right? And
Yes, I do. But as we know, it's, I mean,
you're much more likely to commit a terror
and
attack than you would be if you're an atheist.
But to take the portion of people using the niqab and the burqa as an example, that was one of the sort of the headline of the Telegraph article that we're talking about here in relation to the Meloni laws. That's 3,000 to 5,000 people in the UK, perhaps. Of course, we see them much more in London because there's a much larger Muslim community here. But to make such a huge issue out of this, when actually that doesn't, that isn't the vast.
Just one second, Kai. Poppy Coburn, what's your view? Is Meloni overstepped here, or is she in mood with the zeitgeist?
I always find it interesting when people invoke that we are a liberal society when anyone attempts to clamp down on incompatible parts of cultures that actually can be quite repressive. Because multiculturalism has already eroded a lot of things that people liked about liberal society. For example, we now have hate speech laws. That was something that was introduced because people were concerned about community tensions, and that concern over community tensions was considered more important than our ancient right of free speech. So it's always a trade-off.
That's such an Americanism. We've never had. And that's
where do you think they got free speech right? Anyway, look. The point I'm trying to make here is that obviously walking around in a niqab is making a statement. I don't just think it's a religious thing. I think it's making a statement, which is I am different and I want to live my life differently here, and I don't care for the customs of this country. Now, I'm sorry, that is a problem, and it would be a problem if it's coming from any group that was foreign to the UK. Just because we're focusing on Islam is because it's the one that's most visible to people.
Tim did mention a list of countries at the outset that have banned the burqa and/or the niqab. What's been the reaction in those countries to that move? I assume governments had no real problem doing it. Has there been a sort of backlash against it? Have Muslims protested and organised? I mean, what would likely happen here if we were to do that?
I mean, I think France did it many years ago, right? So, you know, they did it way ahead of us, and now you've got Italy. It'd be interesting to see what the reaction will be in Italy. Other countries have done it as well without any significant backlash that I've seen so far. So I think this is achievable. As he said, it's a minority of Muslims that do this anyway. You know, so not all Muslims are campaigning saying, I want all my women to wear face coverings and so on. So I think it's quite achievable to do this.
Kai, you say it's just a small number, but actually, I mean, firstly, I was in parts of London, as you say, last week, and I probably saw more than the number you mentioned of people wearing burqas and niqabs. And I think there is an issue around integration. I mean, this is a week where we've had a very robust national debate over integration. Are we an integrated society? Now, when I go to some towns in England, and I do see lots of people wearing burqas and niqabs, or I see visible signs of segregation, I'm concerned. I mean, it makes me worried about the future direction of travel here.
Yes, I agree, but the conversation is never around integration and never around policy solutions for integration.
Well,
and always around these headlines, always around these headline issues. I mean, one of the reasons there hasn't been a backlash in places like Switzerland, for instance, is the number of people wearing a niqab or a burqa is in the double figures.
Well, France has a very large Muslim population, and they've banned it.
Yes, but the point I'm trying to make is this is such a non-issue in the majority, in the vast majority of this country, and actually, yes, we do need to make sure that any community isn't ghettoised in certain areas, and we are seeing that here in the UK. But let's introduce incentives for people to actually move to other schools, all that kind of thing.
For how long do you think it would be a non-issue? For example, if you were to be massively increasing immigration from Muslim countries, that makes integration, which is a slow and difficult to measure process, much more difficult. I mean, there's also a factor that we haven't really discussed yet, which is that sometimes people choose to wear what would appear to be a religious covering, not out of particular religious feeling, but as a way of expressing, cultural difference. You will see many women who wear a hijab who are actually not particularly religiously Muslim. They're doing so because they want to express that they are somehow different from the mainstream.
Well, the debate will carry on as always, as you know. But just a reminder for viewers at home, before we continue with the show, tonight on The Late Show, Live from midnight, Ben Leo sits down with former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who does not hold back on all topics, from Gaza, the future of the Conservative Party and digital ID. You do not want to miss this interview, The Late Show, live from midnight. Now, coming up, we're going to be going to Kent, where a market town has become the battleground for Razor Colours protesters and those who oppose them. Is putting up flags a sign of unity through patriotism, or is Prime Minister Keir Starmer right when he says it is a cover to instill fear? We'll be debating with people from that area in 1 minute.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I was very lucky enough to be at the station today to welcome it in, be part of the group welcoming it into the station. It's about 1:15 this morning. So I'm back down in London again now. It's been a busy old day, but yeah, I've been on that train previously on the main line. We took it out for a test run a couple of weeks ago, and we were in those wagons under moonlight. So this little engine pulled us along a branch line. And under test, but this incredible replica train, a complete train, genuinely is a direct link with the past, and lets us understand a little bit what it was like to have technology like this at the time, and then showcase this phenomenal little machine and this train, these vehicles, how we can solve problems today, actually, and how far we've come, and shows the heritage of Britain's genuinely incredible railway network.
It is a pretty little train, actually, isn't it? And if you say that it can help you solve problems today, in what way? I mean, this, compared with that machine it is next to, it's incredibly primitive. So what can we learn from this little thing?
Well, I think that the same problems extend today as today, right? That we need to move people and things from A to B. And what's so lovely about seeing a machine like this, locomotion number one replica, of course, is that it genuinely shows us how someone thought, I've got a problem. How do I move coal and people from up there to over there? And actually the answer was railways. And so often today, the most efficient way of moving people around still in railways.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, a picturesque Kent market town has become the focus of an extraordinary battle between Razor Colours protesters and those who oppose them, leading to an intervention from the County Council. Union flags began to appear across Faversham in August. You can see them on the screen, but some locals began quietly removing them. Kent County Council have said only unsafe flags, in quotes, should be taken down. Now, in response to this, a group of local residents organised a deflagging event on the same day as an anti-immigration rally in nearby Canterbury in an attempt to catch some Raise the Colours supporters out of town. So is raising the colours a way of uniting people through patriotism, or is Keir Starmer right that it is a cover to instil fear? Well, joining me now to debate this is founder of the Raise the Colours movement, Elliot Stanley, and activist and commentator Shakil Afsar, who feels very differently about raising the colours. Shakil, should we start with you? What is wrong with flying the Union and St George's flag?
Well, the first thing that's wrong, Matt, is the fact that under the Highways Act 1980, it's actually a criminal offence to affix anything to council furniture. I'm actually quite perplexed how the Chief Constable, Tim Smith of Kent, hasn't taken actionable force against these individuals. Before we get into a conversation of whether it's right or wrong, the fact that it's illegal. And as a law-abiding citizen who prides himself in supporting his local law enforcement, I'm questioning the fact, why are these people not being arrested? Because quite rightly, if they're as patriot as they are, they wouldn't mind being arrested because they believe in the colours.
OK, thank you, Shaquille. Elliot Stanley.
Well, I mean, there's several national county councils that have quite openly admitted that they've got no intention of removing the flags from their street furniture. I would definitely not say it's an illegal matter. It's a potential civil matter. But, you know, there's certain patriotic councils out there, which are now reform councils, that have certainly said they've got no intention of removing them. I think to call it an illegal matter would be simply ridiculous.
Yeah, well, my question to that, Matt, would be, and that my question I'd like to pose to Elliot, does he believe that, you know, he's very patriot and he believes God save the king? Is that something that you believe in?
What, do I believe in Christianity?
Do you believe that God, you know the quote, God save the king, is that something that you believe in? Do you support King Charles and the patriotism about everything?
Absolutely, I'm a monarchist and a royalist.
Could you please tell me how many countries is King Charles the king of, please?
He's the king of the UK.
And how many other countries is King Charles the king of? If you're
are you asking how many countries? Are you asking how many countries is the head of state of?
He's the king. How many countries?
No, he's the king of the UK. He's the king of the United Kingdom.
Elliot,
can we keep this focused on the flags, guys? Can we keep this focused on the flag, Shaquille? So, Shaquille, we've got this issue around, you're saying highway code, you've got policies, procedures, that's what should be used to essentially bring these flags down. I mean, would you be saying the same if we were talking about other kinds of flags being flown from public buildings and lampposts?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that the councils shouldn't be put under further pressure. I come from a city which is Birmingham, where our Birmingham City Council is under massive pressure. And as British and proud as I am, I have no issue with the flags, but my issue is when the Birmingham City Council is hiring night staff to remove these flags. My neighbour, who is a white British pensioner who's 87 named Margaret, whose council tax is rising because the council has unnecessary costs that's associated with these flags. And the bigger issue, to be quite honest with you, is because of people like Tommy Robinson and his cronies who have hijacked this whole flag and patriotism. Because why hasn't Nathan put any flags up in Spark Hill or in Small Heath or in Borstal Heath? Why is it that it's only a Muslim English-dominated areas? Why isn't Nathan and Elliot, and his flag campaign coming into our areas? Because I challenge anyone to show me one Muslim person removing flags off lampposts.
Shaquille, in fairness, just before I go back to Elliot and give him some time, in fairness, the story is hooked on Faversham in Kent, and I don't think you could call Faversham in Kent a highly diverse or Muslim area. But Elliot Stanley, over to you, please.
Shaquille, I've got a proposition. You've just suggested that we put some flags up in Small Heath or Allen Rock, or wherever it may be. Why don't, as a patriotic British person, why don't we team up and we'll go and put some up in Small Heath? There's a suggestion for you.
Unfortunately, the council the city I come from do not allow this, and it's actually against the Highways Code 1980 to put up flags. The question I want to ask you is: should people from all the countries of the Commonwealth, whether it's Antigua, Australia, Bahama, Canada, Jamaica, or New Zealand, also be allowed to put flags up when their country's king is King Charles?
Well, I would suggest this to you, that yesterday we were putting some flags up, and we've had a lot of resistance in one particular area of Birmingham called Sturchley, where we've had them removed twice over the course of the last fortnight. So yesterday we've decided to go out and put poppy flags up, coming up to our Mister's Day, saying, lest we forget. I've met incredible hostility with that. Yet again, but I've been called a fascist. I mean, the ridiculous of that by putting poppy flags up and then being called a fascist for doing so.
Look, Elliot, sorry to stop you. I did watch your interaction with Nathan from the tattoo artist, and I absolutely agree with him. The question that I ask you is why
do you
are
agree
not
with the fact that he said the Armada were plundering?
Hang on, fellas. Shaquille, what's the question? What's the question? What's the question, Shaquille? Repeat it, please.
Sorry?
Repeat your question, please.
My question is, why are you not gaining consent from the local councils before you're putting these flags up when you have people from the local community like Nathan, the tattoo artist, who really from the area compassionately, very virally made his stance of why he had an issue with his flags. And you, Elliot, might have the most sincerest reasons for doing so, but unfortunately, people like Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson have hijacked your campaign. And that's clearly evident by the fact that the highest recorded religious hate crimes are against Muslims. And I hope that GBNews will share that with
Shaquille,
the people that the highest recorded religious crimes are against.
Elliot, Stanley, I mean, I imagine one... Please, Elliot.
I think we're digressing slightly there. As I've repeatedly stated, this is nothing to do with race, it's nothing to do with religion, sexuality or creed, colour or anything else. This is a patriotic act. Whether you think it's illegal for hanging or displaying flags on council street furniture is a separate issue. The fact that we're doing it because we're all British and we're all patriotic, we should all get behind our flag. We should all show unity.
Absolutely. I agree with
so
what
please come and join me. Please come and join our movement.
I agree with what you're saying.
There's a really big offer for you there, Shaquille, to consider is possibly helping.
Let me just add one thing. I agree with what you're saying, that we are very patriotic by the flag. But the question I ask you is, would you be okay for people whose king is King Charles from Antigua, from Australia, from Bahamas, from Canada, from Jamaica, from New Zealand to put up flags on our lampposts as well, because they're quite rightly patriots as well, and their king is quite rightly King Charles. Would you be okay with that?
Would you like me to answer that question?
Please.
So last night when we were in Sturchley, yet again, a gentleman come up to us, and he had a flag with every flag of the world on it, and we quite happily. We'd already erected a poppy flag, and then he said, would you mind putting this up on a lamppost? I said, absolutely. I've got the video of supporting evidence that we put that up. If a gentleman from Jamaica come up to us and said, would you put this up for us, we would display that flag.
So there we go. There's some real unity, fellas. Fellas, we're out of time. We're out of time. We're going to thank Elliot and Shaquille and just pop back to the panel because I just want to get their thoughts on this discussion and this debate. Kai Wilshaw, this flag debate is not going anywhere, is it?
No, it really isn't. I mean, I think both sides need to come to some sort of understanding. I'm a big fan of the Welsh flag, and I've come around to the St George's flag for the English as well. I don't see what the big fuss is really all about.
Bobby Gober, in that debate, you saw basically the politics of nationhood, the politics of identity and belonging playing themselves out there in Birmingham, some pretty different views and focusing on some pretty local tensions. I mean, where is this debate going?
I think that's a very good question. I mean, I actually am of the view that putting up flags is not just an entirely neutral statement. I think it's actually a positive political statement, which is I think it's pulling people out there and saying that they have a problem with the British flag or they have a problem with the English flag, which I think is an attitude that we then need to interrogate. Because if there are a lot of people in the country that have a problem with our national flag, then we need to understand why that is and how we can fix it.
I have to say, I didn't hear all of these concerns about health and safety and council rules and procedures when the Palestine flags were going up and down the country on lampposts. But there we are. Thank you to Elliot and Shaquille for their time in that debate. Coming up, Yvette Cooper today has refused to rule out children as young as 13 being forced to have a digital ID card under the Labour government's proposals. Reports suggest that the ID could be needed for booking childcare and even accessing your money. But I thought it was just about controlling illegal migration. So what on earth is coming next? We're going to be talking to a top expert in 1 minute.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. Storm Alice continues across eastern areas of Spain, bringing heavy rain and also localised flooding. But elsewhere, it should be a mostly fine and settled picture, particularly across Madeira and Tenerife, most of Portugal and also Spain. But it's across eastern areas where we'll see that storm continuing to bring heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain, strong gusty winds and also large hail. Elsewhere, though, across the Mediterranean, it is mostly dry, settled, plenty of sunshine. That will continue into next week, along with warm temperatures widely in the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the weekend, it should be mostly settled, dry, chilly overnight with some fog during the early hours of the morning, but where we see the sunshine, it is still going to be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. The reason for the settled conditions, well, it's all thanks to high pressure swirling around as we head towards the weekend. At times, though, across northern areas, it will drag in some cloud from the west. It's likely we'll see spells of drizzle across western Scotland through the course of Saturday morning. Elsewhere, a mix of cloud and also some clear skies. The clearest skies particularly across eastern areas of England, so a chance of some mist and fog here, and most towns and cities will remain in the mid to high single figures, but across any rural areas under those clear skies, a good chance we could dip below freezing and possibly see some frost. So a chance of this across eastern areas of Scotland, but in the northwest, much cloudier picture, quite a damp start to Saturday morning. This rain likely to linger through much of the day. Across Northern Ireland, elsewhere across England and Wales, a dry and bright start to Saturday. As I say, though, there could be some mist and fog during the morning. Quite a chilly start to Saturday too, but any low cloud will lift and break nicely through the course of the day, and by the afternoon we should see some sunny spells, feeling warm in that sunshine too. Though across northern and western Scotland, much cloudier picture here, some quite persistent spells of rain eventually pushing their way northward. So not feeling quite as warm here, but wherever we do see the sunshine, plenty of autumnal warmth, highs still reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. For Sunday, once again, some fog during the first part of the morning, perhaps more fog if you compare it to mornings this week. Once again, lifting and breaking through the course of the morning, allowing that sunshine to redevelop by the afternoon. There's still a fair amount of cloud across the Northern Isles, for example, which could produce some drizzle. Otherwise, for the rest of the week, remaining dry, settled, mix of cloud and some sunshine, and temperatures around about average for the time of year.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, Yvette Cooper has defended the prospect of mandatory digital ID cards for children as young as 13 years of age, saying many teenagers already use similar forms of identification. Now, Keir Starmer is seeking to widen his plans for the digital ID technology, which he says will be rolled out by the next Parliament, with reports suggesting the cards could be needed to book childcare, apply for school places and even access your own money. Watch this.
Here in India, I think it's 1 billion people have digital ID. It's been taken up on a voluntary basis in huge numbers, not least because it means that you can access your own money, make payments so much more easily than is available with others.
And here am I thinking this was about illegal migration and controlling the borders, and look how fast the conversation is moving. Well, to discuss this is digital identity consultant Dan Johnson, and also with me still is our panel, acting deputy comment editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn, and political commentator Kai Wilshore. Dan, I'm nervous. What started out as a plan to help us control the borders, one that I always thought was never quite going to work, but it's already spiralling into childcare, accessing our money, 13-year-olds having digital ID, and my nervousness is rooted in the fact that this is the state presiding over digital ID. A state, to be frank, I profoundly distrust for good reason, given the calamity and blunders of the last 15 years. Where are you on this?
So I'm a huge fan of digital identity. I work for a company called Lucidity, which is one of the 47 digital identity and attribute trust framework certified companies that provides digital identity. And we're providing it for convenience, not for control and not for massive data sharing.
Okay.
So the idea is that you're able to share your identity or share parts of your identity, like, for example, the fact that you're over the age of 18, in order to get a drink or to buy your wine at a self-service
But that's different from the Labour government and the state having centralised control over a large portion of our lives.
And that's where myself and the other 46 companies on the Digital Verification Service register disagree with the government's plans to introduce a mandatory centralised identity system that will cost somewhere in the region of £1 to £2 billion, according to the Tony Blair Institute, by the way.
Yeah, there's no way this is going to cost £1 or £2 billion. This is going to be High Speed 2, the sequel, which you know the cost will spiral. Just to walk us through some of the likely problems and challenges that the state will encounter with this.
With a mandatory solution. So holding data centrally is a terrible idea generally. We've seen attacks on data. We read about it in the news all of the time. So massive data breaches of organisations that have done well to protect their data. Large supermarket chains recently, for example, you know, they do a good job of protecting their data, but it's just unfortunately not good enough. So huge amounts of data about people is a terrible design and a terrible architecture. Holding your data yourself and choosing what information you disclose is a much better design. We call that self-sovereign identity.
Right.
And where you are then in control and you're only sharing small amounts of data relevant to whatever transaction it is.
Can I just ask, though, I mean, implementation, state-run digital ID, do you think this is even going to get through the consultation process? Do you think this is even going to be implemented?
I do not. So there's a petition going around at the moment.
3 million signatures.
Yes, exactly. And then also 37 MPs have also written to Sir Keir Starmer to demand parliamentary debate before this goes out to public consultation.
Well, just a reminder, this was not in any manifesto.
Exactly.
There is no democratic mandate for digital ID, but we're just throwing these policies out onto the table, pretending as though this was on a manifesto. I don't remember reading a party document saying 13-year-olds are going to have mandatory digital ID.
No, and I think that's a terrible idea as well. Mandatory ID is a bad idea generally. What's good is choosing to have your ID and using it if you wish.
OK, let me just bring in the panel here. Poppy Coburn, Labour are losing this argument, aren't they? I mean, I say that on the one hand, we've got 3 million signatures, but they're carrying on regardless, as if there is no opposition to this. But surely, as Dan says, longer term, they're going to lose this.
I think there's something actually quite good that they did bring up the digital ID thing, because it's one of those ideas that keeps coming up. Because there's certain people in the government who are so desperate to get this over the line, Tony Blair obviously being one of them, and now his named institute. And the reaction from the British public has been so aggressively against it, not just with this 3 million signature petition to stop it from happening, but protests in the streets. I went to Labour Party conference. I couldn't get through the door because there were so many people screaming about how much they hated digital ID. I mean, that's, you know, that's the strength of feeling people have about this. No, I don't think it's going to get over the line. I mean, it's completely impractical.
Kai Wilshaw?
No, and also MPs' inboxes are flooded at the minute with digital ID. It's the last thing they need. I mean, look, I don't think it's going to get through. Part of this is a failure of comms, right? They announce this policy and leave a massive vacuum in which people can put plenty of conspiracy theories as well as real concerns about how this should be implemented.
Well, we will stay here and continue to update you throughout this debate on digital ID, because it's not going to go anywhere until, hopefully, from my view, it goes in the bin. But tonight, on The Late Show, live from midnight, Ben Leo is sitting down with former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who does not hold back on all topics, from Gaza, the future of the Conservative Party, and what we just discussed with Dan Johnson here, digital IDs. You do not want to miss it. Now, I will see you in 1 minute when shock new polling has exposed what the establishment in Britain is really thinking. Who are they voting for? What do they believe? The figures are astonishing. I'm going to see you in 1 minute.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin. Now, a TV exclusive, shocking new polling by Electoral Calculus has exposed the left-wing bias of the British establishment. And joining me to discuss this is CEO of Electoral Calculus, Martin Baxter. My panel is also with us. But Martin, what is the key finding from this polling of yours? Because you've looked at people who are basically in positions of power and influence in the country and looked at what they think, how they're voting, and how they see the country and the world.
That's right, Matt, yes. So we did a big poll with our colleagues at Find Out Now of people working in establishment jobs, so things like the civil service, lawyers, medics, media, police and the armed forces, and so on.
Some people might call them the establishment, others might call them the blob, but where are they politically?
We call them the establishment because we were interested in seeing whether the old archetypal image of these being kind of crusty old social conservatives was still true or not. And
because in the old days they used to vote for the Conservatives.
Yes, you imagine bowler-hatted civil servants and brigadiers were probably going to vote Conservative. But it's very different now. So we found that compared with, say, the last general election where 54% of the general public voted for left-wing parties, 75% of people with establishment jobs voted for left-wing parties.
So three-quarters of people in the British establishment support the left?
So, yes, Labour, Liberal Democrats or the Greens, and that's 20% more than the general public.
That is crazy. And What else
And
comes
we
out
look
of this?
particularly, one interesting subgroup was what we called the lecturing class, which is...
Oh, I know them well.
Oh, yes, you and I probably both know them well from our past. So this is school teachers, university academics and people working in the culture and media sectors. Of that group, 81% voted for left-wing parties. So over 4 out of 5 people. And of that group, 75% actually who had a vote voted Remain in the EU referendum, which obviously was actually won 52-48 by Leave.
In the country by Leave. So these are the people who are teaching our school children, they're teaching our university students, they are also contributing to what we might call the national conversation.
Indeed. Now, it should be said, in fairness to the bulk of the establishment, that the establishment as a whole's figures are quite similar to what people with university degrees have. People with university degrees are also to the left of the centre of British public. And the core establishment, like the civil service, the medics and the lawyers, we call the professional class, they're pretty much where you would expect, given their education level. But the lecturing group, the teachers and university academics, they are more to the left.
Well, there we go. We have got an establishment in this country, shock horror, that is leaning strongly to the left. But the crucial thing is we've got the empirical evidence here to support that fact. These people are hideously out of touch with the average voter, especially on those cultural issues of immigration, crime and broken borders. But let's turn to Patrick Christys, who's coming up after me. What have you got coming up on your show?
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm here with my live studio audience, and we've got a fantastic show lined up for you tonight. Remember our Afghan friend Madha Passa? Yes? Well, he's been found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage. He also did a video about me, but apparently I'm not important enough to end up in court, so there you go. Also, we're going to go live to Beijing, Downing Street, because Comrade Keir, Chairman Starmer, the China spy scandal is not going away, and it could bring down this government. President Trump has been snubbed for a Nobel Peace Prize. What more does the man have to do? And we're also going to be talking about a big exclusive that I've got for you, very serious story this, about something that the police have found in the Calais migrant camps. And I've got a serious feeling, frankly, that it's coming our way. I'll be with you and my wonderful panel and this lot of wonderful people for the next 2 hours. There
we go. Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the weekend, it should be mostly settled, dry, chilly overnight with some fog during the early hours of the morning, but where we see the sunshine, it is still going to be feeling warm and pleasant for the time of year. The reason for the settled conditions, well, it's all thanks to high pressure swirling around as we head towards the weekend. At times, though, across northern areas, it will drag in some cloud from the west. It's likely we'll see spells of drizzle across western Scotland through the course of Saturday morning. Elsewhere, a mix of cloud and also some clear skies. The clearest skies particularly across eastern areas of England, so a chance of some mist and fog here, and most towns and cities will remain in the mid to high single figures, but across any rural areas under those clear skies, a good chance we could dip below freezing and possibly see some frost. So a chance of this across eastern areas of Scotland, but in the northwest, much cloudier picture, quite a damp start to Saturday morning. This rain likely to linger through much of the day. Across Northern Ireland, elsewhere across England and Wales, a dry and bright start to Saturday. As I say, there could be some mist and fog during the morning. Quite a chilly start to Saturday too, but any low cloud will lift and break nicely through the course of the day, and by the afternoon we should see some sunny spells, feeling warm in that sunshine too. Though across northern and western Scotland, much cloudier picture here, some quite persistent spells of rain eventually pushing their way northward, so not feeling quite as warm here, but wherever we do see the sunshine, plenty of autumnal warmth, highs still reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. For Sunday, once again, some fog during the first part of the morning, perhaps more fog if you compare it to mornings this week. Once again, lifting and breaking through the course of the morning, allowing that sunshine to redevelop by the afternoon. There's still a fair amount of cloud across the Northern Isles, for example, which could produce some drizzle. Otherwise, for the rest of the week, remaining dry, settled, mix of cloud and some sunshine, and temperatures around about average for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? Great to see you. Thank you for coming. Hello. Oh, yes, at the back. Good stuff, lads. Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you very much to my live studio audience. We have got a top show tonight.